4th, everybody. Yes, happy Star Wars Day. And lucky me, I get to spend part of my Star Wars Day this year looking at the comic book adaptation of one of the worst Star Wars movies they've ever done. This is The Rise of Skywalker, Issue 3. So it's like Episode 9, Part 3. How does anyone keep track of anything in this franchise? Actually, you know what? I've said a lot about The Rise of Skywalker and how I don't like it, but as far as comic book adaptations of movies are concerned, so far this book has really lived up to the challenge. It might even be overperforming a little bit. This is the part of the story where we meet Jannah, who I think it's heavily implied is Lando Calrissian's daughter, and then we also get to see Palpatine's son via flashback scenes. Both those characters are really interesting despite the kind of crappy movie they're in. And I think that the expanded universe, whether it's a novel or a comic book or a TV show, should really take a deeper look at them. They slip a one-page scene in here that I don't think was in either the movie or the novelization. It's not a super consequential scene, it's just Rose explaining to Leia how she thinks the Final Order, Palpatine's forces, got the supplies they need to create this big army that they have. But, it's cool that it's there. It's a nice little treat. Phil Noto continues to deliver really awesome covers. And at the end of this issue, as per usual, we see what the cover is going to be for next issue. This cover strikes kind of an emotional chord with me. We never did get to see the OG3 on screen together again, all at the same time. And I'm fine with that, but here they are, and here's kind of what it would have looked like, so that's cool. Happy Revenge of the 5th, everybody! Yes, it's May 5th, which means it's Revenge of the 5th, which of course comes after May the 4th, so it's a day that we celebrate Star Wars that comes after the other day that we celebrate Star Wars. And frankly, I don't think that's enough. I think we need a third day. Since we start raising money for that, can some of you younglings start a lemonade stand? But indeed, to celebrate the Revenge of the 5th, I've got another Star Wars comic book for you. This is Star Wars Hyperspace Stories Codebreaker #1. If you don't know, Hyperspace Stories is an all-ages comic book line that's published by Dark Horse for some reason. This story stars Poe Dameron, the Oscar Isaac character from the sequel trilogy, as he gets sent on a secret mission for the Resistance against the First Order. Despite being set in the sequel trilogy era, this story has really a classic Star Wars feel to it in a lot of ways. We've got X-Wings and TIE Fighters having space battles, Leia sends our hero on a secret mission, our hero dresses up like the bad guys and walks among them, that kind of thing. No lightsabers as of yet, but hey, never rule it out. The art here is really good. It captures Poe Dameron / Oscar Isaac's likeness really well. That's always important to me when I'm reading a Star Wars comic book about established characters. But all in all, this is a solid bet for a Star Wars comic book. If you're a Star Wars geek, I'd recommend it. And in case you're wondering, no one makes a dramatic return in this issue. Do you think Oscar Isaac knew that was a bad line when he said it out loud for the first time? I mean, he had to know at some point, right? This is Star Wars #1, the centerpiece, I would think, of Marvel's big line-wide Star Wars relaunch this year. So this book takes place sometime after Return of the Jedi. They don't flat out tell us, but I think it's probably like a year and change. Our main characters naturally are Luke Skywalker, Princess Leia, and Han Solo, and each has a story beat dedicated to them in this issue. This era immediately after Return of the Jedi is really what I've wanted Marvel to tackle and focus on since the sequel trilogy movies started coming out. I wish it hadn't taken 10 years to get there, but better late than never, I guess. They're coming in hot, at least for me, with a story about how you establish a new government, basically, in this universe that loves to be so violent and chaotic. With these characters, I'm really curious to see how they move forward with that. I think we can pretty safely say that Phil Noto, who does the interior art and the main cover here, is my favorite Star Wars artist. He just nails it. He nails the tone, he nails the feel, the actor likenesses are great. He's got the total package, so he's perfect for this book. Sometimes fashion is interesting in the Star Wars universe, and what characters are wearing and how it does and doesn't change. For instance, Harrison Ford's costume in the original Star Wars movie was famously a white shirt with a black vest. Well, in this issue, Phil Noto puts him in a black shirt and a white vest. It's a little twist there. This issue, this title at large, caps off a Marvel relaunch of the Star Wars titles that I think has largely been successful, at least from a creative standpoint. I don't think the line has been this interesting across the board since Marvel has had it back. I think the only thing that's missing, at least for my money, is something like the old Star Wars Tales series that Dark Horse used to do when they had the license. Just like an anthology book that pulls stories from different characters, some from the movies, some original, like from around the galaxy, different places, different time periods, etc., like a real mixed bag. Just a thought, maybe something for when the book relaunches again, like, let's say 5 years from now at the latest.
We go back to Naboo in Star Wars Legacy of Vader number 4. I'm hoping we spend more time there than we did on Tatooine, but I'm not optimistic. So you might remember that Naboo was a planet that we saw in The Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones. It's where Natalie Portman's character was from, and she plays Darth Vader's love interest in those movies. And Kylo Ren travels to Naboo in this issue to learn more about Darth Vader, Anakin Skywalker falling in love, and how he used that ultimately as an instrument of his rage. The most interesting part of this issue is seeing how Naboo has kind of withered and decayed in the decades since Return of the Jedi. They dive into that a little bit here. And in theory, this whole story could be really interesting. Naboo is where Padme, Kylo Ren's grandmother, is from. It's where she fell in love with Anakin. It's also the Emperor's home planet, incidentally. But, Tatooine was an even more meaty story location for this book, and they only spent 2 issues there. Like, this should, in theory, be like the 6th or 7th issue of this book. Like, they should have spent the preceding issues on Tatooine, and instead it's issue number 4. So again, in theory, this could be great, but I'm not optimistic we're going to spend more than a couple of issues on Naboo. It really feels like they're trying to shove 20 pounds of story into a 5-pound bag here, and the sad thing about that is, from a story standpoint, you're never going to get another chance to see Kylo Ren's first time on Tatooine or Naboo. It's kind of a waste. I might be projecting a little too much meaning onto the cover of Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker number 4. But you know what, in this case I'm actually okay with that. I mentioned this when I covered the previous issue, but this issue has just a gorgeous cover by Phil Noto of Princess Leia, Luke Skywalker, and Han Solo. And when I talked about that, I mentioned that it's cool to see them in their older eras together like this, because we never got to see them all on camera together during the sequel trilogy. But, beyond that, as we're in the 48th anniversary month of the original Star Wars movie, this cover really makes me think not just of Leia, Luke, and Han, but of Carrie Fisher, Mark Hamill, and Harrison Ford, and what they gave to the world as the faces of this little movie that could, that wound up impacting millions of people. And not just that they were able to come back in the sequel movies and kind of be a part of it again after so many years, but, that they've been able to see the impact that Star Wars has had on people as the decades have gone on. It's a tremendous tribute to them.
Again, maybe I'm injecting a little too much meaning here, but in this instance, I'm okay with that. Now, unfortunately, on the other end of the artistic spectrum in this issue, things get a little rough, which is kind of weird because the art up to this point has probably been the big drawing point, no pun intended, for this adaptation. Like, for instance, this shot of Rey looks weird, kind of off to me. And even more so, this shot of Ben Solo / Kylo Ren looks really weird. Like, I don't know how that wound up in the issue at all. Now, you can make the argument, well, that's kind of how the actor Adam Driver looked in that scene. But this is a comic book. It's not a movie. You know, we're not bound by the rules of reality here. So this is an instance where I would have maybe encouraged the artist to use a little bit of creative license to spruce things up and make him look a little bit better, so to speak. Certainly not make him look like whatever this looks like. I would hope that when they do the trade paperback, like the collected edition for this story, that they allow the artist to go back and fix some of that stuff, because he is very good. I don't know if it was a deadlines bearing down on him thing or what it was, but he deserves the chance to go back and kind of spruce that up.